Welcome, everyone. I'm Jeffrey Goodman, Director of Marketing and Development for the YMCA of Northwest Louisiana, and we're here at 318 Latino Studios for Shreveport-Bossier, my city, my community, my home. And we're going to be in brand new territory for the podcast. We're here with Logan Sledge talking about theater. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. What a cool thing you're doing. I'm excited to be a part of it.
Well, I'm super psyched to have you here. So, you and I go way back. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I first met you in the summer of 1997. We've never talked about this, I don't think, but let's start here today. Tell me how you first got into theater.
Oh, man. I don't think we have gotten into this. Maybe a different pathway, certainly. Lots of friends of mine around that time that I was meeting as I was doing theater at Centenary as a student had done children's theater, had done Peter Pan Players, had come at it, kind of up through that pathway. I never did really any of that. I did some children's theater. It was always just school related, but really I got into acting and kind of understanding what it is and enjoying it in an odd way through church activity that I was doing. I was in the First Baptist Choir, which at the time was being operated by Randy Edwards. He ran the choir for a while there and was an awesome choir director and just leader. Took us around the country. We performed all over the place. And at one point, probably I would say, so I came in, I did it for my middle school and high school years. Probably towards the end of middle school before I went to high school, Randy asked me if I wanted to do something different during our program, like a miniature sermon type of a thing, storytelling, and so we looked at some of the works of Max Lucado and pieced together kind of a 20-minute one-person show, and so I started doing it at a young age. We would do a set of our rep, and then we would break from that, and then I would go out and do this little mini sermon type thing, and then we would pick back up with the rest of our set and carry on. So really learning how to engage with an audience, a live audience in that setting, how to get them, keep them, take them where you want to take them. I mean, all of those things I didn't realize I was learning, but I was learning at that young age, how to do that, how to be up there and command that space and take my space. And, so it's pretty wild. There was one time in particular, we were in Colorado and we were performing at a prison and,
so you're in middle school or high school?
I was in high school at that point. I think I was maybe a freshman, and this was the summer after. We did a big summer tour. We would go kind of all over and pick different places. Chicago, Washington. We were everywhere. But this summer we were in in Colorado, and we were performing at a prison. And it was the first time we had done a venue like that. We had pretty much been in, waspy environments, prior to that moment. And this was very different. So we were doing our songs and everything, and it came time for me to go out and do my thing. And they were vocal. They were vocal back to me in a way that I had not experienced. So it was unexpected, and I didn't know what to do. I froze. But there was no way out of it. I had to just collect myself, find my place, live theater, show must go on, get my footing and then go with it. And then I was able to use what they were giving me. It's just that I didn't know it was coming, because every audience we'd have to that point was just quietly, politely sitting there listening. And these guys in this prison, they were like, yes, come, saying all this stuff, like a call and response type moment for them. And so that was wild, that was different.
Yeah.
But it again kind of shows that adaptability of live theater, how you have to be ready for anything to occur. So something I talk to my students a lot about, which is that it's not the idea that anything can happen. You're not trying to convey the illusion that anything can happen. You've rehearsed this piece, but really anything can happen. We don't know. I said, that's your reality. Your reality is anything can happen. Someone will miss an entrance. Someone will miss a cue. A prop will break. Any number of things can happen. And so that's that sort of presence, just really living. There are no accidents. Whatever happens, happens.
And how were you always comfortable with that unpredictability? Or what about you made you able to go into the woods without a map, so to speak?
That's a great question. I don't know. I think at that time it becomes almost not knowing, and so just being dumb enough and young enough, right, to where you're just doing it. You're not even really thinking about it, I think it's interesting, like later in life, I've certainly had moments where I can reflect on my own work as an actor and go, that thing that we're talking about, that ability to be there and embrace the unknown and thrive in that environment, and create an electric performance that truly has that sense of unpredictability and spontaneity, which I think is what's exciting to watch in a good performance. There are moments when you have more of that than others, I think. I can look back and chart certain performances and go, I was holding on too tight in that performance. I wasn't as free as I needed to be. So it kind of comes and goes, I think, as you get older, because there are moments where you get in your head about stuff, you overthink something, whereas, when you're younger, you're not having that problem.
All right, hang tight there, because I want to get into something, and I don't want you to go there too fast. So I think you moved back to Shreveport in 2008, if I'm not mistaken, after many years in California. You and I were out in California at the same time, in fact.
Yeah.
I know that Bob Buseick and Patrick McWilliams, two of Shreveport's greatest theater legends, both of whom unfortunately are no longer with us, both had a profound effect on you. So my question is kind of long, hang in there with me, but it's, tell me a little about Bob and Patrick. What made each of them so good? And tell me a thing or two or three that you learned from each of them.
Well, okay. So I think one of the things that can't be denied that made both of those guys so great at doing theater and creating that art form, and I would say skill, they both happened to, in our market and in Shreveport, Louisiana, and during that time, it just so happens that we had those two people who really knew what they were doing. They knew what they were doing. They knew the craft. They knew technique, good training, good solid training. Of course, Patrick was a product, of that department. So it makes sense that he comes out, with certain skills and things. But he also just had a natural artistic ability as it relates to costume design in particular, So, but I think being skilled and having really good training, both of them, is maybe one of the first things to go, that's why they're so good, right? They had the training and knew what they were doing. I think also when you're in that situation, which, I find myself in now, working with students, it becomes all about motivating people, and how you do that. And I think they were both good in different ways at getting students to go on the journey and to dig deep and to get out of their comfort zone and take risks. They both thrived at doing that in different ways, I would say. With Buseick, it was a little bit more of, I was going to say fear-based, but you were a little afraid, to not be on your game with him, and so that was a motivator for sure. But also, I think beyond that, I was just looking at his work ethic. When you showed up, his car was there. When you left, his car was there. Came back the next day, did he leave? Who knows? Some nights probably not, but his work ethic, he would grind, and you would see that as a student, and that's the real motivation. Everyone talks about how he barked and how he did, and he did those things, but that's not really at the core of how he motivated people, I don't think. He actually really just led by example. Flip it over to Patrick. I think Patrick was really good at personal connection. He could have the conversation with you to find out what's going on with the character. Okay, well, how are you connecting to that or not connecting to that? How can we find the way in, and getting into those conversations? And you felt comfortable having them with him. He was not a peer, certainly, but he was a little bit more in between, where Buseick was, obviously, at that point. So you could kind of talk in different ways, with him and kind of get at what you were trying to get at. I think I covered maybe two parts of your question.
Do you find, I guess we'll talk a little bit about what you're doing today, right. But do you find yourself today, to frame a little bit my history with you, I came back, I graduated college, I had lived in Europe for a year, I came back. My mom was appearing in the Centenary summer theater production, Funny Girl, summer of 1997.
I remember it well.
And I wanted to be a director at that time in film, but I hadn't had any real formal training. And she had asked Buseick if he would allow me to shadow him. And so I shadowed him for that production. But during this time, I was watching, you were very involved, you were still a student. And I felt just watching you, watching Yuri, watching Emily, watching everyone who was there at the time, just that, these were kind of surrogate, both Buseick and Patrick were both kind of surrogate parents for both of, for all of you. Mm-hmm. So my question is just today, do you ever find yourself, do you hear Buseick saying something, or do you find yourself doing something or thinking, what would Bob do or what would Patrick do?
Yeah, I would say more the former. I definitely hear and remember and find myself saying, things that they would say. I was working with some actors the other day on a scene, and they were basically just doing blocking, and that was a big thing that Buseick would talk about, which is getting to the point where you're not just doing blocking anymore. Now everything is motivated. Everything is you living as the person in that moment, in that situation, with all the dynamics at play, with all the imaginary circumstances, all a part of your mechanism and all working to communicate what needs to happen. And so he reinforced that every single show, every single, everything we worked on. So that's a big one that I would take away from Buseick for sure. Patrick, same thing, because you get so many, when you're around people that know their stuff, you've got to listen. You have to listen. And luckily, I happen to pick up a lot and still remember a lot of it. Patrick, one of his big things was, and I actually got to watch him learn it and then teach it. One of the first shows that I did when I got there in 95 was this play called Bent. It's a Martin Sherman play about concentration camps and how they were not only rounding up people of Jewish descent, but also people that had mental disabilities, gay people, all of that, and so the play really focused on that. And there was, of course, there was Yuri and Patrick were the leads, and then carrying these rocks back and forth, because that was the big thing that they had them doing at this particular camp, was just moving rocks from one pile to another pile and then back again. And it was just this Sisyphean, task that they were doing just to beat them down mentally and physically. And Patrick had a scene in that when, I'll never forget, he was stage left, pallet had rolled on through the alcove, and he took a seat on the pallet to deliver this monologue. And I was watching the rehearsal, and he was in this kind of self-pitying mode as the character, really feeling sorry for himself. And Buseick stopped him, And that was another one of the cool things, because community actors would be there, but Buseick, he treated everybody the same. If there was a note to be given, he was going to give it, and he was going to give it directly and in front. He didn't, well, come over here and let me give you this note. It wasn't about that. And he told Patrick's like, you're feeling sorry for yourself. We don't care. The audience doesn't care. No one wants to watch that. No one wants to see that. You have to give us something to care about. You have to fight in this moment. And it completely changed the tenor of the monologue. It brought it to life. And I could see it happen with Patrick. And then, of course, that became a big thing that he would then teach later on, too. So it's helping actors understand, what it's reading like. That's why actors need that person out there. You can't see yourself when you're doing it. Film, completely different. You can watch the dailies. You can go look at stuff. You can make adjustments. You can go, oh, I didn't realize I was doing that. I need to, whatever it is. But theater, you can't really do that, and so you've got to have that person letting you know how it's translating, to the audience. And they were both, excellent at that. Excellent.
Love it. All right. So if I get this wrong, correct me, but I think currently you're the chair of the theater department at Centenary College.
I am.
The hat illustrates, which I love. So my next question simply, tell me what happens today in the theater department at Centenary.
Well, in many ways we operate the same as we always have. And you can look at other kind of traditional theater programs. And we're doing a lot of the same things. We have a production season, that we run. We do 2 main stage shows in the fall. We do 2 main stage shows in the spring.
All at Marjorie Lyons.
All at Marjorie Lyons. Although this past year we kind of branched out and we did Midsummer.
In the Shell.
In the amphitheater there. And that was really fun. It was wild. You've got so many variables, so many things that usually you're controlling that now you can't control, weather and infrastructure of the space and, all of that stuff. So it was great for us, I think, just to demystify that new performance space, get a little less scared of it, and go like, okay, we can do a show here. And it ended up being a really cool experience. We had one night, I think, where we had to move into MLP. It was too cold and wet, But yeah, so we do a lot of the, I guess, traditional, things that programs do. We also have Dem Labs, which you'll remember, which are student-directed pieces that happen at the end of the fall. Production 1 class works on those. I can still remember yours when you were there because you were the film mind in you was already like trying to find a way to incorporate film into this theater piece you were doing, so you had a projector out and it was pretty cool in the classroom there. And then in the spring, we do this program that's called Writer's Circle that focuses on original student written work. And we have those playwrights get a chance to cast their show and they do a stage reading with an audience. And so they get some response, kind of right there.
And so today at Centenary, you can graduate with an undergraduate degree in theater. Mm-hmm. And can you graduate with a specific area of theater, or it's just I'm getting a bachelor's in theater?
Yeah, it's a BA in theater and theater arts. And, again, we're a liberal arts program, so differ from that kind of conservatory approach where maybe it would be a little more specialized. And maybe you would come out with a specific concentration or emphasis, in acting or in directing or design or, whatever it might be.
But you may have students in your program interested in all those different aspects.
We absolutely do. Yeah, they come in and those interests, evolve over their time.
Sure.
So our new hire, actually, Kennedy Wiltshire, is an alum of the program. And when Don Hooper left last year, retired after 38 years.
Another legend.
Came in 87. And when he retired and we started the search, we picked up Kennedy. She was getting her MFA, finishing it up at Nebraska. Great lighting design program there. And but Kennedy's a great example. When she was an undergrad, she came in with an interest in performance. And so she was all about acting and comedic acting and improvisation and really, skilled. But midway through her time in the program, she switched gears and got this interest in lighting design. She was playing catch up a little bit because, had about 2 years, year and a half there then to get ready for grad school. So she really kind of hit it at that point and started working very closely with Don to get ready for grad school. And then you go to grad school and they kind of handle the rest, at that point.
Speaking of, tell people while I've got you just what you were doing at Fullerton in California and a little bit about that theater experience out there.
Yeah. When I graduated in 2000, I had done, Buseick had a friend in town, Don, I'm blanking on his last name now, Don Finn of Mally Finn, right? Mally Finn Casting. And Don was in town for Cal State Fullerton. They were doing a Southeast Theater Conference, and they were doing auditions for grad school and some other things. And we were at MLP at the time. I was in, just the timing of it happened to be, I was in this play called Lonely Planet, which is a 2-person show. Let
me interrupt. Logan's lying that he just happened to be there because if you listen closely to how he talked about Buseick, my memories of you back in the day were, I can't remember ever being at MLP and not seeing you there. So continue, but I just want to make sure that's clear that your work ethic and your level of commitment and dedication to that place was second to none.
I appreciate that. That was our lifestyle. That's what we did. A lot of us anyway. But yeah, so I was in this show, Lonely Planet, and it was a great show to feature me as an actor, just because it was a 2-person show. It was me and Patrick. And so that was at the same time as this Southeastern Eastern Theater Conference that was going on. So I went and did the audition. I met Don, Finn, and some other people. Don called me back, had a great interview with him. And then I invited him to come see the show, which he did. And that's really, that's the best audition you could ever get. It's a full-on show, and they're sitting there just watching you and one other person. So it was awesome. Got an offer there, and at that time, I felt myself, even though my background to that point had been in theater, I felt myself wanting to go more into film, television, and at least see what that was all about, So I was eager to get over to the West Coast and start trying some of that. Cal State was a good spot for me. Had some great teachers.
And this was a master's program.
This was a master's program. Fullerton. That's right. Yeah, the master's program there. They took a class of 8 every other year. So there would always be a 3rd-year class and a 1st-year class, and that was kind of how they cycled that through. So I came in with 7 others, some really talented folks, some who, afterwards they went to Chicago, some to Seattle. Everyone kind of spread out. I ended up staying, and I was offered a job by the department. I'd grown pretty close to the chair, Susan Hallman, at the time. And so she offered me an adjunct position teaching. I taught intro courses, acting for non-majors courses, voice and movement courses. That was kind of my wheelhouse there. And I taught there. That translated into another job up at Citrus College up near the foothills. So I taught there for Sherry Brown also. And at one point, literally, I was teaching at Cal State. I had like 3 classes. I was adjuncting. I had 2 classes at Citrus College. I had a class down at South Coast Rep in their youth conservatory down at Costa Mesa every Saturday that I would run. And then I was also waiting tables at a restaurant in downtown Fullerton that was like a dueling piano bar, crazy atmosphere. And I look back at that and I go, how in the, it was nuts. But I really, kind of fell in love with teaching during that time. And, it took me away from performance. There were certainly moments where I had to turn down an audition because I had a whole set of classes that I couldn't get covered. It was too late. And that created some tension. I had an agent, and I would have to go into the city, pretty regularly. And, that was another thing to just kind of juggle. But then, 2006, Sadie was born, and, my daughter. And so then we did another, couple of years and then came back to Shreveport. Just got a little worn out by that lifestyle, and also when you have a kid, then at that time you're priorities shift, obviously. And, I was on the road so much, and I was just like, this is not how I want to do this at all. Like I knew, so we came back home in 2008, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And, but Cal State was great. Like I said, awesome teachers, great teaching experience that I got. I had a teacher, Svetlana Efremova, who was a product of Moscow Art Theater. And so she was like teaching us stuff that was, really only 3 parts removed, from Stanislavski himself. I mean, it was really cool to get all of that. Had a teacher, Jim Tully, who was really well-versed in Meisner work, Sandy Meisner. And so, I mean, those are still the 2 primary things that I teach, the kind of, base camps anyway. Things kind of go from there, and you develop a lot of your own stuff too. And, but valuable experience, a good program.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right. So last week I had Morgan Walker on here, the executive director of the Shreveport Symphony Orchestra, the new executive director, on the podcast. We talked about how to get new people to go to the symphony. So my question for you is, when is the best time for someone who is new to theater to come to Marjorie Lyons to see a production? And you're just trying to hook them. You're just trying to whet their appetite. You're trying to intro someone who's yet to form a comfortable relationship with the medium of theater.
Yeah, I've never really thought about that topic, I guess, through the lens of that particular question. That's a great way to think about it, honestly. I mean, we are always working on audience building, and that's one thing that just to backtrack a smidge, if you don't mind.
No, not at all.
Kind of going back to our time there, and even a little after, there was a built up audience and following for the plays happening at MLP. You're
talking about when you were an undergrad?
When I was an undergrad, as a student there.
And just everything that Bob and Patrick had built.
Yeah. And again, a lot of that was through their summer musical work, because those are shows that really draw crowds, obviously. But it translated into the regular season as well. And that performance event that I mentioned, certainly during the mid 90s, maybe unfortunately even now, controversial topic, and kind of pressing some buttons for some folks, and sensitive, in many ways, certainly in our community, and full house. I mean, packed houses. I think we may have had to have extended the run of that one, if I'm remembering right.
Let me pause one second, just while I'm thinking. So it was kind of like this dream team of people. So you had the great stable of actors that Yuri, before y'all, John Bundrick, and you could just go back and forward. You had Don Hooper behind the scenes, and then you had, because he's also passed away, I just want to mention him while you're talking, you had Lane Crockett, who was such an important voice, the theater critic who would go and shout from the rooftops that everyone in this community needed to go see the latest production. Yeah.
And then that was, again, at a time where we really had strong journalism, not just in theater, but other areas as well. That's all shifted and needs to find a way to resettle in some way, I think. But yeah, he was, people listened, trusted Lane, trusted him to be honest, and he was, and he had a lot of credibility that way. So people knew that he wasn't just kind of, sugarcoating something, and if he really endorsed a production, you knew it was probably something you wanted to get out and see, But yeah, they had that audience that they had worked to build, and they'd created that. I could get into some of what I would now look at and consider maybe some of the flaws of how that audience was created, and continued coming back. Some of that has to do with continuing to bring in community actors and maybe turning your attention away a little bit too much from the students that are there. Right. I think that was a problem during that time, and it eventually became a problem that had to be addressed.
And just to clarify, what I'm hearing you say is that maybe at times these productions would background the students and foreground community actors who weren't even students, and not give ample opportunity to the people that really needed it at a formative time in their lives.
Well, yes. And what that did, if you really look back and think about, the chronology of all of that. So when Buseick got there, he started training people in a new way and started really breaking ground, for this area, for what theater could be, and what live theater performance could be. So he had several crops come through of some super talented, people that were getting trained through that program, and then going out, many of them going out and staying in the community. There's the list is long of those actors, right? And so then once they had gone through and gotten out to the community, the pattern became he would start to bring them back to do performances. A lot of times it was during the summer musical, so a little less emphasis there. We're out of session at that point. It's less about the academics. It's more about a commercial theater, honestly, at that point. So you get it. But it was happening a lot during the season as well. So what happens then is those actors that you have, because they're not getting that same attention, because you're bringing in these community actors, they don't get trained in the same way, and so you're not producing the same caliber of actors and the same numbers of actors that are on that level to then go out and bring back. And that's, I think, what eventually caught up with them, honestly. It
makes perfect sense.
The students, eventually kind of mobilized and expressed some of those concerns to administration. And then, all of a sudden the department was under the microscope in a way that it hadn't been. And things kind of went from there, which eventually led to, Buseick and Patrick leaving and forming River City Rep. So interesting history as you think about it, especially, being back there now and thinking about our identity and the identity of the program moving forward. What Don created, when he was there. Don, I would say, took a very different tack. And I think Don did what he needed to do in the moment, which was shift the pendulum completely in the other direction, which is great and I think needed to happen. The only thing with that is that when that happened, we lost audience. We lost our audience. They stopped coming, and we've been from that point forward. You can really track it back from that point forward. And I'm just finishing up my 11th year now at Centenary, second year as the chair. That's a big thought, right? So this kind of takes us all the way back to your original question, right? Audience building. What do you say to that person, that is thinking about coming and seeing a show, but you want to hook them? One thing that I would say is, look at the show. You don't want to go and have an experience that's going to turn you off, to theater. You might not go back, for whatever reason. If it's a Greek tragedy and that's not your thing, and you're more like, I want to see some Neil Simon, or I want to see a comedy, or, I
will say, let me just interrupt for a second. So for people who've never been to a play, period, or have never been to a play at Marjorie Lyons, I just want to say a couple of things I'm thinking about as you're talking.
Yeah.
We just had the Shreveport Rougarou on. They're the new arena football team. They're going to be the episode we published the week before yours. One big aspect of theirs is that after the games, all the players stay on the field to meet the kids and meet the fans. And so something that's really special about Marjorie Lyons, in my experience, is that after each production, the actors are in the lobby. You get to talk to them, interact with them. It's also just a great space, period. It's very intimate. The theater itself, and
it sure is.
It's unlike any other theater venue we have in Shreveport-Bossier. So I just want to say that to tell people who've never ventured into Marjorie Lyons, it's a real gem. It's on the backside of the Centenary campus, and you're in for a treat when you finally decide to go there.
Yeah, no, it's you You nailed it, right? I mean, it's a unique singular space, and certainly a singular theater in our community. There's not another one like it. It's 315 seats, but it does not feel like it. It feels way more intimate. Acoustically, it's an incredibly live space, and I think the only thing that I had to go back and talk to Sam Weiner and be like, in the 50s, consider this, right? It is, Don always called it a postage stamp, theater, because it doesn't have a lot of height. So when you're doing shows like I mentioned Neil Simon a little while ago, we'd built the set essentially for Rumors. We were getting ready to do Rumors back in 2019, and we shut down by COVID. And we had to walk away, and the set was like there on the stage. We'd blocked all of Act 1 at this point, and then it was like, everything's done, you're done. But like a 2-story set, it's challenging. Not to get the height. You can get the height. It's just where you have to go on the stage to get the height, and then what that means for sight lines for the audience. So some of those things are a little trickier once you're in there, but it's a gorgeous space. There's not another one like it. It's a coveted space. Theater artists are always trying to get in there. Stage Center usually rents it like door to door in the summer. This summer in particular, they're doing like 7 shows there, I think. So, it is a gem. It's a true gem.
So look at the schedule. Anything else on that question, just to kind of, I don't know, take that first mini step into experiencing theater?
Yeah, I think look at what's being offered. Look at the show.
They're inexpensive.
Oh, incredibly! Yeah, I mean, our largest ticket's an adult ticket at $20. For live theater, for all the resources that go into making it. Of course, we're in a great position. We're supplemented by the college, so we get our budget in that way, and we have some really great friends who help out in other ways too.
So 4 shows a year is what you're doing right now. 2 in the
4
fall,
shows a year, 2 in the fall, 2 in the spring. We mix up the space. As beautiful as Marjorie Lyons is, it's a proscenium theater. And I left there having done, I was what they call now a super senior. I did a victory lap. So I did 5 years. And it's because I was doing so much theater, I didn't have the credits to graduate, and realized it late. And I was like, okay, well, but I left there after 5 years, 20 something shows, never having worked in any other space other than proscenium. And then I got to grad school at Cal State, and I was working in the round. I was working in 3/4 thrust. I was working in a theater down in Santa Ana that had 74 seats. It was a tiny little intimate space. All these different spaces, and it was like, oh wow, okay. So what we do now is we create our own black box theater on the stage of MLP, and build out the audience risers on the stage itself, close up the main rag, and invite the audience in around through the alcove entrances to come in and have their seat. We did 2 shows in that setting during the fall. Metamorphoses, which is a beautiful play that features a very large swimming pool on stage. And the characters are all, in and out of the water and splashing the water around. It's all part of the transformation kind of metaphor of the show. And then we did an adaptation, a Kate Hamill adaptation of Little Women also in the fall. So it creates a different, even more intimate environment. And I really think people like that. People are used to that screen. They're used to that TV screen, that phone screen. They're used to being right there. And even at MLP, it's not a lot of aesthetic distance that's created there. But even that distance is too much for some, so you're sitting there going, I'm just not, I don't feel like I'm watching this, So you moving into that black box space is great for some people. They love it because it's like, I'm right in it, and some shows work in that setting, and some shows, really aren't appropriate for that setting. So.
Love it.
Yeah.
I need to come to, I hadn't been to a black box production there, but I will.
Yeah, I think you'll dig it. Yeah. I think you will like it a lot. It's a neat experience.
All right, I'm a hang in there with Morgan again. So last week, Morgan from the Symphony and I also talked about what our community would miss without the symphony. So I know how lucky we are in this community to have symphony, to have opera, to have ballet, to have community theater. So in your opinion, what would Shreveport-Bossier miss if community theater ceased to exist?
Oh, I mean, interesting question. I think some people wouldn't miss anything. It's not in their orbit. It's not something that they do. They do other things for entertainment, and I get that. For those, and we have a strong arts community here, and have for a while. For those folks, I mean, it would be. I just feel like there would be a real emptiness. I think we go to the theater, those that go and go regularly,
and get it
right. I mean, it's all about looking at yourself. It's seeing you up there as a person with all your flaws and stupid things that you do and things that you think of, ways you trip yourself up, and just it's all on display. And so it's, I mean, going back to that old thing of Shakespeare saying, holding the mirror up to life and all of that, it truly is. It's that opportunity to laugh at yourself, and just be like in stitches laughing at yourself, to empathize with a serious situation, a serious moment in someone's life, something that you have experienced, something that about, territory where you've been. And it's cathartic in that way. It's therapeutic in that way. So it gives great joy to a lot of people. And I think without that artistic outlet, whether you're the creator or the audience member or whatever, I can't even answer the question, honestly, Jeff.
You did.
I can't envision what that would be like. It's hard to envision.
Yeah. Well, Logan, those are my set questions today. It's such a treat having you. And as I told you, I mean, there are other things. I mean, we could cover so much. Like I said, I feel like, I've known you more than half my life. And is there anything else you want to share or mention about what you're doing or about what you've done? Or if not, no.
I think one of the other interesting things, maybe is just kind of where the theater community is, right now in this region.
So tell me, so what options are there for people interested in theater? Like, if I want to go see a production, who is putting on productions? Where do those exist across the local community?
Yeah, I mean, so this weekend I've got 2 weekends now here, and of course we've got our own stuff going on at Centenary and commencement's coming up, and I mean all of this stuff to plan for. But somehow I'm like, okay, I want to get over to Shreveport Little Theater and see 9 to 5. 9 to 5, the musical is running this weekend and next. It is, this gets into my thing a little bit about like where the theater is right now, because that's been a big, passing of the torch. Bobby Darrow has now left Shreveport Little Theater. For the longest time, he was the artistic and managing director, doing both of those jobs.
And was part of the Buseick, McWilliams.
And was all part of that, exactly. I've done a ton of shows with Bobby.
He was in Funny Girl, I believe.
Was in Funny Girl, absolutely. Was in Bent, the first show I mentioned, and just Assassins, on and on and on and on. Awesome performer, in his own right. But so he's left that post now and handed it over to Laura Beeman Nugent. And so, I want to go and support and see what they've got cooking up over there, and what this new sort of phase of Shreveport Little Theater is going to be. I'm also trying to figure out how I'm going to get over to BIPSI, Bossier Parish Community College, and their theater program is doing The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, which is a show that I did with Stage Center. It was kind of a collaboration with Centenary Theater Program at Stage Center. Probably 6 years ago now. And it's a great show. I'm curious to see how they do it. What will their production look like? What will the design be like? Are there student designers in there? Because it's a JC, community college, obviously. Are there student designers in there that I want to talk to, or student actors and say, wow, what a great performance. So what a great performance. You want to come. It's a recruiting opportunity, right? Exactly. You want to come do 60 hours at Centenary and finish out and get your BA. So So there's that happening. Stage Center, as I mentioned, is they produce. They're in their 12th season now, I think.
What is their home base?
They have offices out at Grace Community Church, I think, on Ellerby. So I think that's where their offices and classrooms, because they have a completely separate School of Performing Arts training program that they run as well. So I think they do all their classes and office work out there.
Is that Jared or that's someone
Jared
else?
Watson and Seth Taylor are kind of the two main ones. Candy Huggins does a lot of stage management for them.
So Jared, I think, was also in Funny Girl, and he was part of.
Mm-hmm. I can remember carrying our little toys, guns that we had, and I've got all those old pictures too. Jared was in there as well. He went on to OU to do his undergrad there, and really started transitioning into an interest in directing, I think, at that point. So
let me shift gears one second, just while I've got you. So as we hear more and more talk about maybe the second wave of the film industry in Shreveport-Bossier, how do you see the theater community being part of that ecosystem? And do you have any thoughts around that? I will tell people who don't know, I mean, oftentimes, perhaps the actors with greater craft and greater skill come from the theater community, and film really appreciates having people with those abilities to utilize and to choose from. So just how do you kind of see that working, or do you think about that at all?
Yeah, I do, and I'm one who benefits, honestly, from the growing, this like you said, this kind of second coming, of the film industry here, largely set off by a lot of the Film Prize activities, because they're so consistent, and throughout the year. I mean, it's just like operation that never stops, So, and I've done a lot of those. I've worked with a lot of those directors. Now it's turned into less like, I'll get a call about an acting job, and I'll get a call about, hey, can we use your theater and film something there? So things have been filmed at Marjorie Lyons, things have been filmed on Centenary's campus. And so there is some already, some of that back and forth, that exchange, that collaboration happening. You have actors who've done mostly theater, community theater, whatever it might be, who are taking those opportunities and now working in film and working in front of the camera and figuring that out. You have designers, who are doing both. We have at Centenary, more and more I see students coming in who have a dual interest. They're not just interested in theater. They're interested in film and theater. And sometimes the film is number one and theater's number two. So we have some things programmatically we can do on campus. Obviously, we can kind of cover some things in the theater program and send those students over to the communication arts program to do some of the film work as well. But having Film Prize, having these connections, knowing people, being able to call and see, when the next project is or who's doing what, even if it's a technician or an acting job, our students are starting to get involved in some of those projects, and it's starting to round out that film interest that they have, in very practical ways, that are, I think, great, because it's getting them out of the classroom. It's getting them on set, actually doing the job or watching someone do the job and learning in that way. So I think a lot of that's happening. We've talked about, sharing actors, creating, I think a database has been created, needs to be updated, obviously. But there's a lot of that going on, and I anticipate more. It seems like we're gonna, at least for a little while here, have some more projects coming in. So that's pretty cool.
Anything else, Logan? I mean, I'll just say, in the event it's not clear for everyone listening, we're so lucky to have Logan here. We're so lucky to have what's going on at Centenary. I encourage everyone to go see what's happening at Marjorie Lyons. They're always on the cutting edge. They're always delivering far more value than what they cost. And I'm always inspired when I am with you and when I'm seeing something that you're involved with.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Wow. It's this has been fun, and I appreciate what you're doing. I think it's so cool to find a way to, get word out to the community about what's happening around them. It's another really great resource that people have. So congrats to you, man. Thank you.
No, I enjoy it. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Great to see you.
You too, man.